NASA announces Asteroid Bennu contains carbon and water. A comet explosion may have kick-started agriculture in Syria, and the light pollution from artificial satellites has now reached the point where the brightest stars in the night sky can't compete for our attention. It's Wednesday, October 18, 2023. These are the science and space headlines you need to know now.
Celebrating 20 years of Trekzone. This is Trekzone's Talkin' Science.
Initial studies of the 4.5 billion-year-old asteroid Bennu sample returned on osiris-rex show evidence of high carbon content and water, which could indicate the building blocks of life on Earth may be found in the rock. NASA made the news last week from its Johnson Space Center in Houston, where leadership and scientists showed off the asteroid material for the first time since it landed a few weeks ago. Within the first 2 weeks, scientists performed quick-look analyses of the initial material, collecting images from a scanning electron microscope, infrared measurements, X-ray diffraction, and chemical element analysis. X-ray computed tomography was also used to produce a 3D computer model of one of the particles, highlighting its diverse interior. This early glimpse provided the evidence of abundant carbon and water in the sample. Tiny specks of dust can cause giant problems for lunar missions. Without paved roads, exploration vehicles moving across the lunar soil will kick up dust, and due to the moon's low gravity, this tends to float around and can damage equipment. Transporting suitable construction materials from Earth would be very expensive, however, but now a proof-of-concept study suggests that lasers could be used to melt lunar soil into a more solid, layered substance suitable for roads and landing pads. This process would require a lens of just under 2.5 meters square, a relatively small size for future moon missions to transport. It's part of a case study into our future habitation of Lunar. New research claims that a fragmented comet exploding high above Syria initiated the first ever farming village. Excavated material from a prehistoric village, which is now submerged in Lake Assad in northern Syria, indicates a drastic change in local climate following a likely indirect hit by a large comet around 12,800 years ago. The airburst resulting from the atmospheric impact likely wiped out all settlers of the village and caused a blanket of dust to settle over the region, blocking sunlight and triggering a bitterly cold winter. Following a cataclysmic event, a dramatic shift in lifestyle from hunting to agriculture and even domestication of animals occurred. It's all part of new analysis of remains excavated from the area 50 years ago. The Ring of Fire eclipse observed by much of North and South America last weekend is typically an annular event, but as the mean distance of the Moon to Earth increases at around 3.8 centimetres each year, our view of total eclipses will eventually wane to zero. That's because the Moon's orbit is perturbed by the Sun's gravity, primarily, and it's slowly drifting away from us. Scientists are able to measure that drift thanks to the 12 Apollo astronauts leaving laser reflectors on the surface during those pioneering lunar missions. Eventually, the apparent size of our celestial neighbour will be diminished so much that its dark umbral shadow won't even reach the Earth's surface. Artificial intelligence could help us find life on other planets and the oldest life on Earth by helping scientists determine whether a sample ever included something that was once alive. Simply put, the new test reliably determines whether the history of a sample under examination included something that was once alive. In tests so far, the algorithm is batting at about 90% accuracy, including from living things such as shells, teeth, bones, human hair, and remnants of ancient life such as coal, oil, amber, and fossils. It could also identify samples that never contained living things, such as pure laboratory chemicals like amino acids, and even in meteorite samples. The technique may also help scientists to confirm if the 3.5 billion-year-old black sediments from Western Australia are the Earth's oldest fossil microbes, or if they are devoid of life signs. The Blue Walker 3 satellite, launched in 2022, has become one of the brightest objects in the night sky, according to new research and observations from Mount John Observatory in New Zealand. When fully deployed, the 8x8 metre satellite shines at the same intensity as Procyon, the 8th brightest star in the night sky. Blue Walker 3 also periodically becomes hundreds of times brighter than international recommendations, and the study authors say these bright spots could hinder our efforts to monitor space from Earth. This is another example of artificial satellites taking the shine away from our natural night sky vantage point, with Starlink also working to address their light pollution issues. Jupiter-like planets may be more common in the nearby solar neighbourhood than previously thought, suggests a paper published recently in Nature Communications. Past research has suggested that less than 20% of Sun-like stars are orbited by Jupiter-like planets, despite models predicting that such planets should form easily within those systems. However, researchers analysed 30 stars in a young, moving nearby group and found that 20 of them were likely to host a Jupiter-like planet. Raphael Grattan and colleagues analysed 30 stars using stellar mass planetary distance distributions, which are widely used to discuss planet formation scenarios. They found that 20 of them might host a Jupiter-like planet, as their orbits would be stable. The authors suggest that Jupiter-like planets may be more common than previously thought, at least in small star-forming regions. Well, we are podcasting on YouTube and across every podcast app. Find each of Trekzone's shows on Google or Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Tuned In, and more. Plus, Trekzone's channel in the iTunes library gives you a one-stop shop for all of our goodness. So jump onto your favourite podcast app, find Trekzone, and subscribe. On YouTube, membership continues to be available, early access for less than a cup of coffee per month. And of course, our social media feeds always have the week's podcast highlights and Star Trek episodes. We're coming up to a bumper end to 2023, so like, follow, and subscribe to never miss a moment. This is our 20th year to the world. We are Trekzone. I am Matt Miller. We've both been going boldly since 2003.